Begin installation on your K&N 63-1123 by turning off the vehicle's ignition. Release and remove the seat from the vehicle. Next, remove the battery bolt that secures the negative battery cable to the battery. Disconnect the negative battery cable. Release the spring clamp that secures the crankcase breather hose to the chamber. Then disconnect the crankcase vent hose. Release the 3 clips that hold the airbox lid in place. Now remove the airbox lid from the vehicle. Loosen the air filter retaining bolt and remove the stock air filter from the airbox. Push the crankcase vent fitting and grommet out of the airbox from the inside out to remove it from the airbox. Next, loosen the hose clamp that secures the stock intake tube to the airbox. Then, remove the 4 airbox mounting bolts from the airbox. Remove the airbox from the vehicle. K&N recommends that customers do not discard the vehicle's factory air intake. Loosen the hose clamp that secures the stock intake tube to the carburetor. Remove the intake tube from the vehicle. Disconnect the crankcase vent hose from the vent fitting. Loosen the hose clamp that secures the carburetor to the manifold hose. Next, disconnect the carburetor from the manifold and pull it out to the side of the chassis. It is not necessary to disconnect any fuel supply hoses or cables during this step. Be sure the fuel supply valve is switched to the off position. Remove the float bowl plug to drain the fuel from the float bowl and gain access to the main jet. Be sure to capture and properly dispose of the fuel that will drain out of the carburetor when the float bowl plug is removed. Reinstall the float bowl plug and carburetor and secure it with the factory hose clamp. K&N recommends replacing the stock main jet with a key-in number 210 main jet. Different jet sizes may be needed depending on altitude and atmospheric conditions. Install the silicone hose onto the carburetor and secure it with a hose clamp. Next, install the provided crankcase vent filter onto the airbox and secure it with the provided hardware. Install the provided crankcase vent hose onto the crankcase vent filter. Now it's time to install the tube mounting bracket onto the airbox using the provided hardware. Next, install the airbox into the chassis and secure it with the provided hardware. Route the crankcase breather hose to the vent chamber and then connect it to the open end of the crankcase vent port. Some trimming of the crankcase vent hose will be necessary. Install the K&N intake tube through the airbox into the silicone hose on the carburetor. Secure it to the mounting bracket on the airbox with the hardware provided and to the silicone hose with a hose clamp. Place the provided K&N dry charger onto the K&N air filter. Next, install the K&N air filter onto the intake tube and secure it with a hose clamp. Reconnect the negative battery cable. Reinstall the seat onto the vehicle. Double check to make sure everything is tight and properly positioned on the vehicle. After 100 miles of driving, check the nuts and bolts and retighten if necessary.